Hi all, and welcome back. Carbon1 here. And today I want to show you something I've been working on for a while because I want a way to manage the capstone fight, the keystone fight, if you will. And I've been working on something similar for minion fights and other fights to keep track of stuff easier. Okay, so I came up with something called a Bog Witch Defiler. And you notice how you have 1, 2, 3 right there, right next to those 5 red boxes each? Those are stages, okay? And each one of those boxes represents damage track. Okay. Oh, but that's only 15 hit points. No, it's not. Okay, so basically, when you successfully hit, that takes away 1 box at least. Okay, see, we have evasion rating 11. Okay, I'm saying evasion rating because you're avoiding damage. You're evading damage. That's the point of that. Okay, so our armor class doesn't really make sense when you're avoiding. So evasion is an evasive term, whereas armor is a reduction term in other games. And I'm just trying to keep it simple. We all know what that means then. You know, armor class, evasion rating. It's an equivalency. Okay, so if you score 11 through 14, you successfully hit the Bog Witch. You know, and the thing is when you successfully hit the Bog Witch, okay, but when you hit a 15, that's the second set of 5, right? So, and we're not using the D20 here. We're using our own special dice system. And I don't really want to dive into that right now. And the reason is because I'm still working out certain kinks. This is just an example. But let's say we're using a D20 just for giggles. Okay? So if you roll a 15, that's the second damage box, right? Boop, boop. So your first hit is, you roll a 15. You're testing how well you hit, really. If you hit and how well, that should count for something, right? It's far more narrative than just, did you hit? Yes, I hit. You know? And then if you roll a 20, let's say we're using the D20 for example here, that because it is the maximum roll, add on another stage. So we hit yes at 11. We made the 15, yes. We hit the 20, but the 20 is also the capstone, right? No critical hits, you just capstone your hit. So rather than 3, you have an extra one. Because you don't want fights to just wipe instantly, because look, 1 stage is worth 5. But in this example, in most examples, so now we see the mana rating 5 per turn. So basically it works like lands in Magic the Gathering, but different. Okay? And then over here we have the attack damage D4. Okay, so if she hits you, it's a D4 damage. Psionic feedback and magic feedback D4. Okay, which means if you attack her with psionics or magic, you take feedback of D4 damage. That makes sense, because she is a Bog Witch Defiler. There is something so corrupt about her that when you try to use her element against her, you suffer the consequence for it. Okay, makes sense to me. And then we have move 8 float. So what does move 8 float mean? Meaning she's not touching the ground, she's floating, she's kind of hovering. 8 means 8 spaces. So whatever terminology you're using, you know, you can move her 8 spaces. That's amazing. That's pretty good. because 30 feet in D&D is 6 spaces, so she's pretty fast. Like, she's a bug witch defiler. That's dangerous. Like, so the speed and the nature in which she acts should be reflective of that, right? So you as the game master need to present her as a threat. And then you have an actions, 2 per turn. Okay? So what do we mean by that? So I think 2 per turn might be a little bit lenient on this. I think it should possibly be 3 per turn. Okay. But is that very effective? There's a reason why I'm giving her stages, okay? Because her abilities will be something like that, okay? You have the stage 1 Bog Witch Defiler, Hands of Corruption, range, touch, okay? It does D4 plus D12 damage, costs 2 mana. And remember, mana comes back every turn, so there's only so much you can do, right? And then there's Life Sap, touch. Obviously, it's touch. You roll 1d4. On a 1 through 3, it does damage, and it restores 1 life box, right? On a 4, it deals 4 damage and restores 2 life boxes. So you could go from stage, well, okay, let's say I change these abilities on stage 2. She might lose that ability, right? Unless I put like stage 1 to 2. You see what I'm saying? But the less of these you have to keep track of, depending on the condition of your boss creature, the better you are off, right? And then I have Bog Mist, all within reach. So, say you're determining that because of the terrain or something, the Bog Witch could easily hit one of your characters as if they were in range or whatever of her reach. That works, okay? You're a game master. You master the game. The game answers to you. Why? Because you need to make calls. You are judge, jury, and executioner occasionally. So, and this does, 1d8 damage, costs 3 mana. So basically you could drop this, right, the Bog Mist, and then you could do the Life Sap touch, and then that's your turn, and you used up all your mana to do it, you know? If you're surrounded, it might be a better call than trying to do 2 of the Hands of Corruption. I would say this is fairly balanced because 1, you hit everything with kind of a medium range attack, right? With another, you're capable of restoring a moderate amount of health, possibly. And then with the other one, you are just taking a full force hit to your opponent. And, okay. That to me really sets it up. Because, now, remember, I said to hit your opponent, you know, you have to roll that number up to the next multiple of 5. And then if you hit that next multiple of 5 up to just before the next one, so 15 to 19 would give you an additional point. And then when you hit your capstone, which is 20, that's 2 instead of 1. So, and that's the reason why I'm calling it capstone, because I'm not using a d20 in my system. But if you wanted to use a d20 for this, you have the tool to do it. So so say you're using a d30, right? The reason why I say that is because some people like to use Dungeon Crawl Classics, okay? 20 in that case, because it's not a capstone, would just give you an additional point. So, and that would be kind of lame, because then you're rolling against this thing and then you're like, oh man, where am I? Why am I doing this? Because if I roll a 30, okay, so 11 to 15, right? Okay, so there's 1, Okay, so 15, 20, 25, 30. Bam, you could instantly wipe out an entire stage of the boss's health. And you could make it 10 or even 15. But I'm just suggesting 5 is a simple way to keep track of this. But, or if you really want to, you can do a single line in pencil through this, and then on the way back, do it the other way to form X's. So, you're in charge of what you do, the way you decide to use this. You have that authority. I'm not telling you how to do it because it's an idea, okay? And by creating these little encounters, by devising the methods in which a creature acts, and then naming the abilities, you can really infuse it. And that's something you don't see in the monster manual. Like, you see all these blocks of stats, and they are utterly useless. Like, there's too much. Have you ever played a game where somebody pulls out the monster manual because they have to double check that they're playing according to the rules as written? That's an awful feeling. Don't get caught in that. It's awful. It's not role-playing at that point. It's a war game at that point. The difference between role-playing and war games is very simple. One, you're doing something to have an experience, and the other one, you're experiencing a simulation. Okay, so we all know that America and our allies won World War II. But, okay, Germany had some pretty impressive stuff. But if you're trying to simulate this experience, we already know what happened. I mean, so there's this consequence of breaking immersion, whereas role-playing in a fantasy setting is supposed to be about that creativity of its own, a self-generating thing. And that's why when you have your Bog Witch Defiler, you give her a name, and if the Bog Witch Defiler happens to be a dude, that's up to you. So, I'm asking you guys, please use what you see here, and if you guys could, please submit your own type of creatures with this system. And I'm not going to use them for anything outside of like personal stuff. I'm not going to claim your work on this. I want to see if you guys like what's presented here, because with one pencil, you have unlimited encounters with this. And you can always switch out these stage abilities and write up your own stages. So this Bog Witch Defiler might have Hands of Corruption, Life Sap Touch, and Bog Mist, but Jimmy Johns might have 3 different abilities or 2 abilities that are the same. But when you're keeping track on index cards like this, it is far easier to do instead of having like yeah, so the Rust Beetle attacks again. Okay. use your index cards. These are very cheap and effective resource tools. Alright, so that's been over 15 minutes. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think, because I've been working on this for a bit, and I've been meaning to put it down in a video, but I want this to be a flowing experience. You need something that feels dangerous. Alright, Carbon 1 out.